Hey, it's me, Tim SqWAYre, inventor of the SqWAYre, and you may remember me from such classic videos as What the Heck Does a SqWAYre Do? I'm at it again. I'm developing another tool, two of them actually, to sort of grow this brand and this product line of SqWAYre tools, and I'm going to show it to you right now. This is like a beta version, and let me explain why I made it first. There are a couple measuring instruments that I use quite a ton in guitar making. I am a huge fan of the digital calipers. I use these all the time, and I use them and love them so much that I actually cut my favorite pair in half and put a clip on it so I could keep it in my pocket. And then there's another tool I use quite a bit of, and is just a very inexpensive machinist ruler. But each of these tools are instrumental in making instruments. They all lack something, and so what I've come up with is a tool that I think sort of bridges some gaps. I'd like to introduce the SqWAYre X and the SqWAYre L. Get it? It looks like the letter L, looks like the letter X.
In Australia we pronounce it SqWAYre X or SqWAYre L. Who comes up with these names?
There's a lot of very accurate measurements that I want to make all the time. And so like I said before, I carry these digital calipers around me religiously, and also for CNC work. So this can do a lot of what I need to do. Like for example, if I want to get the height of this pickup, I can simply put the edge of my digital calipers on there and push down and see I've got a reading of 0.3910. But now suppose I want to get the height of this fret. This doesn't reach. So what I have to do is I have to take that number I just got and then get this number and then add them together. There's got to be a better way, right? So they do make tools that have a longer reach. They make things like this, which is just completely useless in this type of a setting. It's just way too big. And that's where I came up with the idea for the SqWAYre X. So now with this tool, I can find my height by putting this across 2 frets so I know it's nice and stable, and pushing down, and now I have to remember that I'm measuring from the inside here, and I can see that I am 10, 11, 12, 13 millimeters high. Let's do it again. We'll pretend this horrible guitar neck is still in its horrible guitar, and we go like this. We can get the measure from the base of the guitar to the fretboard, but then we can also get it including the frets, and we can make sure we got a pretty good sample. We can go across a few frets to make sure that we're nice and level, push that down to the body of the guitar, and now we have all sorts of measurements. The other thing we can do is we can actually measure to the frets. We can say, well, how far away is that 15th fret? So now we're measuring heights and lengths at the same time, and we have our story stick we can take with us over to wherever we need it. But then the other thought I had was that, you know, most of the time what I really just need is just something longer to check my depths than what is provided with this. And in this case, the SqWAYre L can do the job as well. And then the other thing that always bothered me about these rulers is that most of the ones that I see have inches on one side and then metric on the other, which is great because I like to use both. However, on this particular tool, I can measure this side and I can look at the metric, but then if I want to bring metric over here, I'm kind of stuck using imperial, or I'm looking across and there's all these lines and it's just so frustrating. So I went and I had a bunch of my own rulers made. I put all inches on one side so the line goes across, and centimeters on the other side. So you can pick and choose which one you want to use. If I want to measure this height in inches, I got it right there, and I just flip it over and I have it in centimeters. Like suppose I want to get the height from the bridge to the body of the guitar, I can't. There's a little groove in there. That little groove is pretty skinny, so I want to get inside that little groove. So now I can use this tool and I can go right inside that little groove and get the exact height of where my string is. And again, I can sit and count 30 seconds, or I can be lazy and just translate it over to my digital calipers right there, 0.46. I've been prototyping and experimenting with this tool for a while, and here's an earlier version that I was laying out a guitar, and you can see I wanted to find the center line so I could lay out the bridge, and I used my SqWAYre and the SqWAYre X to find it by just using the SqWAYre to make sure the SqWAYre X was square. And then I marked the center points. I was able to slide it out, mark the second one, pull the ruler right out of the SqWAYre X to draw the line, and voila, we're good to go. And then at the headstock of the guitar, you can see I'm using a prototype SqWAYre L with the wrong kind of ruler before mine were in yet to find the center of the top of the neck and figure out my center placement all the way down the line, and then use that as a reference point to carve out the nut. I'm starting to set up this guitar that I'm building for the Great Guitar Build-Off, and so I put the neck into the pocket, and I've got my bridge piece in here, and I need to start thinking about my string height and my angle and all that. I can't measure from the body to the centerpiece of the bridge at its lowest position. With the SqWAYre X, I can easily measure the very center of it with something that's not much thicker than the strings, and I can see my exact bridge height. And so now what I can do is I can get this measurement, which I can see here is about 7 centimeters, or millimeters rather, duh. And then I could go and I could raise this all the way up and measure it again and see what my range is. I can measure the outside edge fret. 5, 6, 7, just touching the 8 centimeter line. Now suppose I want to get the middle of the fret, which is going to be a little bit higher. And we see we're more like 9 millimeters. Another use is it is a quick and accurate way to check your router depth, whether it's in a router table or your handheld router. You can simply make sure you're flush on your table and bring it right down to the top of your cutter. So let's talk about the SqWAYre L for a minute.
SqWAYre X and SqWAYre L.
This one I designed to kind of be the one that you keep in your pocket and carry around. So if this is all you need and this is what you're looking for, then that's great. And besides these depth measuring and all the basic stuff that a machinist ruler does with what I think is a better layout for using it, it has this sliding piece that you can use as a stop for holding measurements and carrying them with you, and I think this is a lot better than what most rulers have. It's a little bit bigger, so that's a con in some cases, but it's a pro in others. This is almost exactly 1 inch. This is a 45-degree angle, and it's of course not going to be as accurate as your Starrett SqWAYre, but this is a right angle, and you can use it in a pinch. How do I do this? And there's your 45-degree angle right there. Now the X is the original idea that I had come up with, and I had some very complicated and convoluted ways of approaching this. Then I ended up stripping it down to this, which is I think a pretty elegant design. And again, the rules are made overseas, but then the rest of this is made here by me in my shop. And like I said, these are like a beta test of them, I guess. I made a fairly decent sized batch, and I want to get them out in the hands of people that might find them useful and get some feedback and insight as to whether other people will find these usable enough to sort of invest in developing it and taking it a little bit further. Like one of the things I love to do is make these actually have digital readouts. Who knows? And you can also just take one ruler out and use it like the L if you wanted. No rules. Do what you want to do. The ink is very durable, and it was baked on especially so it could even handle being dipped right into acetone, as you can see, so that should last a while. And I wanted to make sure it wasn't going to rub off in the process of being used, and I also wanted to make sure that the tool wasn't going to wear down into use, so I did a lot of durability tests. Why are you laughing? I don't get it. And then this part here I am making in my shop from some cutoffs of some reclaimed acrylic that I got. There's actually an eco-friendly acrylic, and then there's some brass pins, and there's a little mechanism inside that makes it work. So these are a joint partially made overseas, partially made here in my shop in Meriden, Connecticut. And this first series I made is all of this blue acrylic that I have, so we're calling this the blue series, the original series. I'm also curious to see what other ways people might find to use this. If it only does the one thing I need it to do, that's great, but if it can do more, even better. And I could see it being used to where you could set depths for finding distances in new and creative ways, different ways of getting two measurements at once to do offsets inside panels and whatnot. And the other thing, I thought it might be useful for people to do turning, where they could go into the center of maybe a larger bowl than this and find the radius and the depth at the same time. I also put a little bit of thought into the packaging on this, that I wanted to make sure that they shipped safely. So I thought, well, why not just make this sort of very simple container so I know that they're going to arrive to you safely and not bent or anything. And then you can use this as a place to store it. Maybe you put a screw hole in it and hang it on your wall. Packaging waste drives me crazy, so this eliminates most of the packaging waste and makes the packaging actually useful. In this first run, I did buy some MDF for the main part of the packaging, and the backs are made from reclaimed materials, including, of course, hollow core doors. You know, the reason I had started this whole YouTube channel in the first place was to sort of address like sustainability issues in manufacturing and in making and woodworking and whatnot. And another big part of it has always been to, you know, encourage people to dare to dream and to think outside the box and to try things and to not be afraid to fail. And this is just another example of that. I looked on the internet and I couldn't find anybody making anything like this. Maybe I missed it, and if you find something, I'd love to see what they're doing, if it's better than this or whatever. But so, you know, there's plenty of room still in this world to fill these voids and to have these original ideas. I know it's easy to look at the web and all this stuff and think that everything's been thought of, but it hasn't. For those curious about the process, it started with me modeling it in my Vectric software and printing them out on my 3D printer, and then quickly realizing, of course, that that is not a way to manufacture them. It's too slow. But then I've been developing the whole system. You can see prototype after prototype, trying to get it just right, because what's important to me is the fit of it and whatnot, and the tolerances need to be right, as well as I have this sort of mechanism inside that applies pressure to it, and I want to apply just the right amount of pressure so when I slide the ruler it's easy to slide, but it doesn't move and lose its positioning. And so if it's too tight, then you're going to be jamming it around and screw stuff up, and it's too loose and it can slide on you, you lose your measurement. So that is the hardest part of these, and the part that is still not perfect. Like on this one here, this one is just a tiny bit looser than this one, but they both stay still. And so that's the other reason I want to get it on the people's hands and to kind of get some feedback on fit and finish and how all that works. So you can go to sqwaretools.com to get these and to learn more about them. And again, price-wise, I mean, we're talking about like t-shirt prices here. These are not some ridiculously expensive thing. I really want people to use them and not just hang them on their wall, though. That's the whole idea. I want to develop this as I continue to develop the whole SqWAYre tool line. I have some other tools in development in my brain right now, but I want to see what happens with these. So we're launching these next, sqwaretools.com. The brand is growing. Make sure to use the hashtag SqWAYre when you use them. You can use the hashtag SqWAYreX or SqWAYreL depending upon what you use. I'm also going to put just these rulers, just like this, up for sale at sqwaretools.com, and they say SqWAYre Tools with the logo on one side and New Perspectives Music on the other. It's just a very simple and affordable way to support this project. If that's within your means, I would really appreciate it. And this is obviously it's a great machine. This ruler is accurate to the 32nd of an inch. I use these types of rulers all the time just for checking, things like string depth and measurements and all that stuff. Maybe you'll come up with your own idea based on this ruler. I'd love to see it if you do. All right, thanks a lot for watching, and please be good.